Welcome, amazing audience. Welcome, amazing audience. If you are watching this, I have to tell you that this is a pre-recording of Game Beyond the Game, but you are still with us presently. So thank you officially.
Hey,
Now,
hey.
welcome to Game Beyond the Game presents Talk That Talk, inspiring conversations with professional athletes where we inspire our audience to explore finding vision and purpose in life and discuss tools to overcome life's transitions. I am Sam Pearson, second year MC, and we are joined by founder Prince Daniels Jr. Prince, how you doing today?
Ooh, man, I'm feeling lovely. It's a beautiful day outside in sunny San Diego on a Sunday. Wow. Well, how many S's can I put out there? But no, I'm doing spectacular. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Awesome. And as always, always have amazing guests. Today is no different.
Mm.
Now, our guest is Aaron Wexler, and I'm just going to start with the mission. It's going to be followed by an amazing conversation, which is to inspire the next generation of athletes to become the best version of themselves, both within and outside of their game. Beyond that, let me tell you, Aaron is quite the busy man out there. Host of Within the Game podcast, as well as founder and co-owner of West Coast Beach. Played volleyball for UCLA from 2001 to 2005. Competitor on Pro Beach Volleyball's Tour 2008 to 2017. And volunteer assistant coach for UCLA women's team that won the D1 championship in 2011. And also the varsity coach at Crossroads School from 2013 to 2017, state finalist in 2016. Does a whole lot of things and does them very, very well. Please welcome our guest, Aaron Wexler. Aaron, how are you doing?
Oh, man, thank you so much for that intro, man. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
Man, absolutely great to have you. Really quick, tell us something about yourself that we wouldn't know just by looking at you.
I'm a yogi. I love to practice yoga. I love to, kind of go within and really get in touch with my inner being. I'm a spiritual person. I think that, we're all having a spiritual experience, kind of like embodied in our bodies. But, I'm really a spiritual person, and I like to try my best to listen to that inner voice inside.
Awesome, man. That's great to know. And you know what? Let's go with that, because in being a yogi and listening to your inner voice, where are you coming from right now? From what I understand, you're on the beach, just taking life in. Let's talk about that. Where were you? And just walk us through the experience.
Right.
Yeah.
You're on the West Coast, right?
Yeah. I'm in Los Angeles, and just before this,
Sorry, Stan.
Just before this, I was doing a beach yoga class actually in Santa Monica. It was about 80 degrees outside, and I was before the show we were talking about finding your bliss, and finding your bliss in moments, whether it's in a yoga class or just by yourself, or whether it's with other people, I think is so important, and just with whatever your mission is or goal is or what you're trying to do with your life, you got to find that bliss, and so I just found a little bit of it, just closing my eyes, listening to the ocean and looking up at the sky. And I'm hoping to carry that bliss over into the other areas of my life.
Amazing. How often do you try to get out there?
This is actually my first time on in an organized setting for like an actual yoga class, but I have my own practice that I do. And I've been doing it for a long time. But when you go to a class, you get that nudge from other people, or the teacher, so it's, you can find a little bit more discipline, I feel, when you join a class.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that. I always tell folks yoga intimidates me. Yoga's real. I think there's so many folks that underestimate like how difficult yoga can be. Oh, but nobody does. It's like, no, that is one of the most powerful exercises or let's say activities that one can participate in. When you think about yoga, what is something you think people misunderstand about yoga, Aaron?
Yeah. Great point. For any athletes or coaches listening, man, yoga it's a practice, right? Just like everything. I mean, we go to practice for our sport, and sometimes practice can be mundane. It's like going through the motions and stuff like that. But yoga is a practice, not just about stretching and being limber. It's about being present, being focused, and that's what really helps me is to get to that practice of listening to your breath. I know, Prince, you talk a lot about meditation and even just finding a few moments. It doesn't have to be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, hours. It could just be a few moments of practicing listening to your breath and focusing on just having your thoughts stay calm, and finding that peace. So I think that's the main practice. The physical side of it, the actual asanas, the poses, they can be challenging, and sometimes they can actually be more challenging than weights.
Well, Prince, if you found the same thing, because I know obviously you've done quite a bit of yoga and meditation clearly, right? So what do you find in those two practices, or as they kind of marry each other?
Yeah, man, yoga is for me, it's getting in contact and connection with your breath. One, being able to breathe through the poses. I remember when I first started yoga, everyone was just like, breathe through the poses or breathe through the stance and be strong and hold it. And you hear this warrior pose and, be strong. And I'm like, man, my muscles are shaking. What do you mean breathe through it? But with the practice, you start learning how to really breathe through your muscles. I know for me, it was just something that I had to continue to keep doing. And then one day I was in class and I felt myself breathing and I could feel how strong my pose was. And I was saying to myself, this is exactly what they're talking about. I can feel it. So it's definitely much more difficult than lifting weights. I think, we are conditioned to learn how to lift weights. But when it comes to yoga and holding a pose, it's we are less conditioned. And so when you start to condition yourself on these practices, it becomes a little bit more of your daily life routine. So yeah, man, but I love yoga. I haven't had a chance to get back into it as of lately because of our external environment, but for the most part, I definitely catch a little bit on the Peloton app and do it in the house. Yeah.
Love it. Now I'm going to ask a question, Aaron. I don't know if you'll consider it a difficult question now, but it's going somewhere, I promise. So what I do see in yoga, and we've just kind of been spending a little bit of time on this, I just think it's a powerful topic also, and it just came from the experience. You go from one move to the next move. There are constant transitions. What do you think the most difficult part about going from one position to the next position is?
Integrated movement. It's a really good question because we as athletes we're focused on doing this move and then doing that move. Okay, we got to focus on this and then we got to focus on that, right? Just kind of all over the place. The challenge is to try to seamlessly integrate the movement, right? And that's what yoga gives you as an athlete. It gives you a more of a sense of integration, right? Everything is connected. Your lower body, your upper body, your kinetic chain. Really, all athletes need to know about their kinetic chain, right? It's just how everything connects. So the more you practice kind of seamlessly moving from one pose to the other, you can carry that over to running. You could carry that over to jumping. You could carry that over to any athletic movement you could think of, right? And the more you practice it, actually, the more fun it is to be as integrated as possible. One of the things that my mantras that goes through my head on a daily basis is fluidity and movement, fluidity and breathing, fluidity, because we're all water, right? And even sitting here, sometimes we hunch over, right? And it's just like that postural check, I want to be fluid even as I'm sitting. One of the poses in yoga is Tadasana, which is a standing pose, and you're just standing. And a lot of men, we're really tight in our hips. So we get this external rotation in our hips, and just to practice standing with a fluid check on your body, just like, am I fluid right now? Even just standing here, it's a really good check for all of us, not just men, but everybody,
Whoa.
Man. Hey, Stan, I'm sorry. I gotta take this moment.
Please.
Because I want talking about fluid. Make sure you hold on to your thoughts, Stan. But talk about fluidity. All right, did I say it correctly?
Fluidity, yeah.
Fluidity. There we go. I said it right there. We did not get a chance to talk about your flow in life, like where you're from and how did you get here and how did you get to where you are right now. What was that fluid transition like? Did you grow up on the West Coast? Did you grow up on the East Coast? Where are you from?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm from born and raised in Los Angeles, and my parents actually exposed me to yoga and meditation at a young age. They actually met in macrobiotic class. And if anyone doesn't know what that is, it's kind of a certain style of way of eating, where you're eating very clean and very conscious, and you're focusing on your chewing, and it's very Eastern kind of style of eating and choosing your food properly. But they met in that class, and they exposed me to yoga and meditation in the spiritual world early. So I kind of had that exposure growing up, and then I experienced partying a little bit too hard when I was in college as a D1 athlete. I worked really hard to get there, and then when I got to UCLA, I kind of let loose a little bit, and I kind of reached a point where I was like, man, what am I doing? Like this is not me. And I actually got a job at a yoga studio when I was in college. And a lot of my friends made fun of me, because, they were like, oh man, that's for girls or whatever, and I was just like, it's all good, man. I'm just going to go there and just learn. I wanted to be a yoga teacher for a long time. And so that job, like, just opened me up to this amazing community of people. And I really like that community, the yoga community, the spiritual community, man, like, they're onto something, right? It's like this mysterious like vibe where you're just like, man, like everyone, not everyone, but most people you meet in that community, whether it be yoga or spirituality, there's an ease to them, right? No matter what they're doing with their life or their path, there's this sense of ease. And I always picked up on that. I was like, man, I want that, I want that ease, and so, yeah, so I started practicing quite a bit. And then fast forward, for, I don't know, about a decade, I was coaching a lot and, working with kids, and Prince knows this. I actually went to Thailand before COVID. I found myself in Thailand at a yoga ashram, and I was there by myself. Kind of a long story of how I got there, but I had the intention of going there, and I found myself there, and it was this really cool manifestation. So I was there, and it just kind of clicked for me. This whole notion of like, what are you doing with your life, Aaron? Like that inner voice came to me and was like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? What are we doing here? And I was like, man, like, I want to share this message. I want to share this message of inspired living. To me, and we'll get into this more, maybe, but to me, that is what it's all about. Whatever route we go, whether it's an athlete, a writer, a speaker, a podcast host, whatever it might be, businessman, teacher, it's all about like finding that inspired feeling. And so how do we find that, and what daily practices are we doing to try to find that? So that's kind of a long answer to that, but it's just like, that's what got me on this path. And I'm also working on a forthcoming book, and Prince is really inspiring to me because of that right there, his book, and it's cool to see the finished product. But that journey of this message of like, what is inspired living and how do we find it more? Right? How do we get to it more? Even while we're uninspired, okay, we can still find it. That journey led me to, interviewing people, including Prince, which I'm going to release his podcast episode on my podcast this week. But connecting, right? Connecting up, right? And learning and also to filtering out the noise. That's a big part of this whole journey for me, not looking at the news so much, not worrying about other people and their dreams so much. I know we talked about that a little bit, but just staying focused on that inner voice and that calling and that inner mission, So I know I kind of rambled there, but that's kind of where I found myself to here and now.
It's amazing. I like the terminology connecting up, and how important it is to be specific about what we're doing and who we are coming in contact with. So it's like, yeah, connecting is cool, but just like, no. Connecting up, like getting granularly specific and intentional about the language we use, so we get to where it is, we want to be. What's the title of your book, Aaron? The book coming out, do you have a title yet? It's a working title?
I have one working title. Thank you for asking that. Limitless and Powerful. Yeah, that's a working title there.
Oh,
because
Lord.
because I think we all are, man. But like, okay, so I'm an athlete, right? So I want that feeling of being limitless and powerful on the court in the middle of the game, right? But I also want that while I'm walking down the street. And I think both are attainable. While I'm connecting up with someone, while I'm connecting up with y'all, like I want to feel that feeling. To me, it's an emotion. It's an emotional guideline, right? It's a guideline. It's like following that emotion to lead you down this path of inspired living.
Prince, if you don't mind me, go ahead, Prince.
No, I don't have nothing to say, man. I'm just saying, go ahead, Stan.
What you're speaking is something it's up on my mind for a long time. I feel like knowing your gift, like that's a superpower in and of itself, right? And then being able to execute the gift. Sometimes the gift, though, is only present as you're executing. So, example, as you're talking about being on the court, Prince being on the field, like that is when at the top, the best part of you, let's say from a talent standpoint. But what missing in so many, let's say, lives and the lives of athletes and certainly the everyday human being is leaving their gift where it is and then walking out into everyday life and wishing that confidence, that spirit was with them all the time.
Right.
So being able to create that, again, that omnipresence of emotion, of confidence, of whatever it is all the time. Like, what kind of superhumans would people, I want you both to answer that question if you don't mind. Like, what kind of people would we be if we were, regardless of what it was that we did, like because we're all confident when we're in our space, like when we're in our gift. What kind of people would we be if we could take that everywhere with us?
You go ahead, Aaron.
Beautiful question, man. Beautiful question. We would be the best versions of ourselves, and we would be unconditional. The conditions around us wouldn't phase what we're going through as a part of our own evolution. And we would inspire others who aren't quite there yet to come along on that journey, and we would live in that blissful state as a player in the game of life. And we would play to win.
That's deep. Prince, what you got?
I don't know. I thought I was about to say we would play to lose because we're always winning. Like, that's awesome. But to second that, I would just say exactly what he said, man, to become the best versions of ourselves. Like, from that point on, you're not really concerned about all the debilitating thoughts that you have in your head, or if you have any, because we will be living from a place of pure confidence, and we will exude that. And anyone else that we will come in contact with, they will actually connect with that, and they would embody that, and right away and be like, whoa, hey, all right. So now I have all the confidence in the world. So now whatever that I do, like for yourself, Stan, I get on stage and I'm speaking to 1,000 people. I get up there and it's just like, let's go. Even though you have the nerves inside, it's just like, let's go, boom. And you speak, you get lost in the moment, you get into the zone, then you come out of it. And it's like, what happened? Like, I don't even know what happened. But hey, like everyone is clapping, like, whoa, is this a dream? So it's that moment that we only get a chance to glimpse it. It would be everlasting, within our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, and can I add on to that real quick?
Please, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, and the other thing we would be is we would not have any FOPO. This is a big one. I actually recently learned this one, and for you guys, for all your listeners, this is big. FOPO is fear of other people's opinions, and that kind of drives a lot of people, including me. I'm not a master of not having FOPO, but just to be aware of it is very helpful. Even in sports, right? Like sometimes we go through careers just wanting validation from others, right? Like some of us, I'm not saying it's, all of us, but sometimes that's a driving factor. So Stan, going back to your question, like we would eliminate that. We wouldn't have any FOPO because it doesn't serve us.
I'm changed because of this interview. I'm serious. Like, it's crazy how, again, it's about, I guess, connecting up. Over the past couple of weeks, and then Prince and I are in all of our interaction and conversations about the constant understanding of wanting to level up and what it takes to level up. Sometimes people say, hey, do this. You don't know exactly how to get to that. And there are these different, again, pieces that you put together a conversation like, yo, if I can just take this part of me and carry it with me everywhere, because everlasting, let's say, confidence or undeniable confidence, it doesn't mean that defeat doesn't exist or doesn't absolve you of failure. Just means that you rock like, okay, this is what's supposed to happen when you try hard. And I know whether it be Prince scoring a touchdown and running 80 yards and then turning around like, what just happened? Like feeling that, or being on the volleyball court and spiking or getting the win and be like, yo, what everyone's cheering, as Prince said, like, what just happened? Right. And then that just moving in life through that, again, supreme confidence. It really, and it's intoxicating.
Yes.
It's intoxicating. And it feels like it's also something you all, please, both of you feel like, if you'd like to comment or answer, feels like it's contagious.
Well, yeah, so it's contagious for sure. It's motivating, it's inspiring, but really what it is it's relatable. That's the whole idea of what I'm trying to do with my message. And I feel the same thing from you guys as well. Like, not everyone's going to be an NFL player. Not everyone's going to be a champion, right, on the within their sport. But if we could relate a little bit from somebody, like maybe if someone just heard that FOPO idea and they could relate that to their lives, I mean, that's what it is. That's that contagiousness, that positive contagiousness that we want, right? We want to make all our stuff relatable, right? I think that's key.
And I have to make one comment. You're not trying, you're doing.
That's what's up.
For sure. The harder you work, the luckier you will get.
Yeah, that's what's up. And I just, sorry, Stan, I just want to say about the FOPO thing, because that's heavy. The FOPO thing is kind of real, man. Not kind of real. It's real. Like even, Prince and I talked a lot about, when we started this project, like putting ourselves out there, that you have to kind of look at yourself in the mirror and be like, let's go, man, let's go, and not worry about that FOPO. So if anyone out there listening to this has a project, or like they want to do a podcast, or they want to start YouTube, or they want to put themselves out there, do it. Like, don't even worry about FOPO. It's part of it. Like, you will have opinions. You'll get support. You'll get hate. That's all good. That's all for you. That's another thing I want to say is, like, things don't happen to you in life. Everything happens for you. I'll be vulnerable for a second. I got a DUI when I was in college, and I got suspended from the team, and it really messed me up. But now looking back on that, man, that was for me. That and got, thank God no one got hurt and everything was okay. I was able to bounce back and all that stuff. But that was a big turning point in my life, man. That was big because I had to check myself. I'll be like, dude, this is not you, bro. This is not you, And so when things like that happen, if you choose to make those things, part of growth, going back to choice, right? You have to choose. Okay, here's a big thing. Winning, right? You have to choose to be a champion before you play, before you take the field, before you have to choose that you're going to win, And so for me, like when you have something that is bad in your life, you have to choose how that's going to affect you. Do you brood? Like when I tell my athletes, I'm like, no brooding. You don't need to brood, like use that as fuel. That happened for you. It's kind of a spiritual concept too, because like even things outside of you, right? To things that happen to other people or in society or in the news that are happening that aren't desirable and aren't good, they're still happening for you. If you choose that, and that's why I choose that. I think everything is for all of us,
And thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing that also, Aaron. That's major. Prince, what's that thought? I feel like you have a question, a thought.
I'm just inspired by just your spirit. You talking on and getting on here and being real. Speaking to people, because sometimes it's hard to say something that's relatable to people. And also, we're in this new era where we're in this virtual world. So how do you connect and reach people on this platform? And really speak to them and really say, hey, I'm speaking to you. anyone that's listening, understand that FOPO is a real thing, and understand that, you know, you have the spirit inside of you to inspire other people, motivate them. And just being great and being the best version of yourself is very contagious, as Stan mentioned. So that's what I wanted to say. Another thing that I wanted to ask is, how do you? I know that you work with kids, and I'm not even sure if you mentioned that, but I'm prematurely mentioning that. How do you keep them inspired? What are the things that allow for you to, like, get down and say, hey, let me say something to you? You know, how do you get their attention? Because we all understand, you know, as we become adults, like, you start finding people that have the imposter syndrome, right? And so these kids can identify someone that's real right away. So how do you get their attention?
Oof, great question, man. It's a challenge, especially right now. I feel like attention is the new currency right now. Yeah, just getting their attention is the number one thing, right? But how do we keep them inspired? Well, you know, first of all, I will say that it's a daily challenge for me. Like, when I'm driving to work, you know, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to tell my other coaches, because I have a cadre of coaches. That's part of it. That's a huge part of it, is like, hey, how can I inspire my coaches so that we can pay that forward to the kids, right? But one of the tools that I use, and again, like, going back to my project within the game, is all about tools for inspired living. So to answer your question, man, I'm looking for that. I'm fine. I want myself, my coaches, my kids, all to have a tool belt, just like Batman. I want us all to have that cool tool belt, and we can just choose things, right? So the first thing is gratitude, right? Like, that's the number one tool, like, right in front. It's like, man, like, whatever you're going through, be grateful for it. And I'm extra blessed and grateful because I get to work at the beach, right? And that's the very first thing I start with. That, you know, I'm like, hey guys, look where you are, right? Not everybody gets to have this. Let's start with that. Let's be very grateful. Do not be arrogant about this, you know? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I actually asked them. I asked them who's inspired today. It's almost a little cheesy and corny at first, you know. Kids are like, okay, whatever, you know. But it's like, but now that I kind of ask it on a daily basis, like, anyone have anything to share about anything that's inspiring? Kids start to think about it. They're like, man, I got an A on my test the other day. I studied really hard for it, and I'm like, great, that's awesome, you know. Or a kid goes on a winning streak at practice, man, like I worked so hard on this one skill and it's paid off, and I'm like, I'm inspired. Great. You know, like, I think the more that we can share our inspiration with others, that's what keeps us kind of going back to that relating, right? We can relate to each other in that way, you know. So I would say, yeah, those two things come to mind. Gratitude as a very easy thing. You can, and then, like, here's another thing. Like, when someone's like, gratitude, like, okay, what are you talking about? Find anything, and you can find the clothes on your back. You can look at your body and be like, man, so thankful for this, man. You could go to your parents, you go to your family, you go to your community. Like, there's so much to be grateful for, you know. And if you just start with that vibration, man, it carries over to everything else. It carries over to your thoughts. It carries over to the way you think, the way you communicate with others, the way, like, what you're doing with your energy, right? Because if you're not grateful, man, that's a bad place to be. You know, it's a bad place to be. So, you know, being grateful. And then the other thing I want to say too is the ability to have transformative action. I took a class at UCLA. It was a graduate class, and I was an undergrad, and I got permission from the teacher, the professor, to be in it. And it was all about transformative action. And what that really means is taking one thing, transforming it to another, specifically for what you want, right? We could take the news right now. Things are going kind of weird in the news. We could transform it into something that is a positive, right? And it's a practice to do that, you know? So I'm trying to teach these kids that I work with how to do that, you know? And you could do it. You could do it on a daily basis. Hey, what can you transform today? You know, and that's inspiring, because you could, like, I see, you know, where we're at, you know, we see quite a bit of homeless people, and it's tough. It's tough to see that reality, but it's also an opportunity to transform and to say, hey, like, this is a condition for this person. can we like smile and nod and not like ignore them? That's a transformative action, you know. I hired a guy to help me set up the courts down there. That's a transformative action, you know. So, you know, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but I get fired up when you ask me that, because that's what I'm all about, right? I'm all about trying to live that myself, and then to carry that and to pay that forward.
Again, giving people the tools to change themselves, and being able to describe, hey, this is what a transformative action is. This is what you can do. And as a matter from an empathy standpoint, if this bothers you or troubles you, okay, what can you do, or what are you willing to do to ignite some kind of change or transition? Because all those are little miniature transitions along the way. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask, one of my final questions, or my final question. And you mentioned your, the kids that you spend time with, and obviously that you coach. What advice would you give to the younger version of you? You give so much great advice and guidance now. What kind of advice would you give the younger version of you?
No FOPO. No FOPO. Yeah, for real. Like straight up, like no FOPO, and start meditating and visualizing now. Visualization is a big part of meditation. And again, I just came from this class like right before this, so I was in it, but like learning how to sustain visualization is challenging, because we just talked about attention, right? Like your focus can just shift so quickly now, especially with the phones and and social media. But I would tell my younger self, like, hey, don't worry about what other people think. Stay focused on your dreams, kid. That's what I would tell myself. Like get clear and stay focused, write it down, create a vision board, and get laser focused on that, and have more fun. It's all okay. Everything's okay. I would tell myself that, like, dude, you're good. You're good. Keep doing keep following your inspiration, keep following your passion. Like whatever gives me like the tingles right here on the back of my neck, like follow that more, like go for that,
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. It's funny. I feel like sometimes, especially when you're young, everyone's trying to, let's say, follow the cool crowd. And in the back of my mind, sometimes I'm thinking like, yo, man, you're the cool crowd. So if more folks remember, like, nah, you're the cool crowd.
Yeah. Wait, one more thing. No, be a beacon of light. That's what I would tell myself too, right? Like I'm doing that right now. I'm trying my best to do that. Like I feel like I'm getting better at that.
I'm trying.
I feel you. I know I need to stop saying that word. But be a beacon of light in whatever way that feels to you.
I like that. I like that. It's free.
Yeah, it's free, man. It is. Oh, I would say a bunch of stuff to my young. I'll be like, don't watch the news anymore, man. That's not serving you. Don't do that.
That's a great point. My dad sometimes he'll, it's kind of like when let's say you want to get revenge to someone, or you want to say something back, or whatever it is, right? Or let's say something that could hurt someone, but he always says, who wins? Like what's at stake? Like what are you trying to gain?
Right.
What kind of fruit are you trying to bear? Whenever he asks me that, it always just it floors, it really stabilizes my thought, my mind. Is like, what fruit are you trying to bear? Right. And that, again, all this entire conversation, your point, and obviously I was spending time with Prince, that's something that it sticks with me. Like, okay, to say this, to do this, to not be that beacon of light, to choose whatever it is, it's like, okay, what fruit am I trying to bear? And I think those are these small little pieces that, again, as we continue to engage younger folks and the people that we're around every day, that they get some of that on them too, and we continue to get it on ourselves. Prince, man, what are your final thoughts or any questions you have?
Yeah, my final questions is, well, one, my final statement is, Aaron, man, you are an inspiration, man. You got me sitting up in my chair like, hey, I think I may want to go and play a football game since the Ravens lost last night, man. But no, I don't. But I do feel inspired too. But one of the things I want to talk about, like, our circle and keeping our circle tight and making sure you have the people around you that's going to gas you up, the people that's going to support you. And my final question would be, within your inner circle and even the outer circle, what do you want people to say about your legacy?
You know, legacy is a interesting idea because, you know, that's later, right? Like that's after we're gone. So it's kind of weird to think like that, but I want to leave a legacy of peace, love, hope, light, inspiration, you know, positivity, you know, a go get it kind of mentality, you know, and lifting everyone up around you, whether they're in the whether they're within my inner circle or not, like leaving the legacy of like the going on the path of spiritual enlightenment and being the best version of yourselves at all times, you know, and not worrying about stuff and not living in the past too much, you know, and putting yourself, you know, and focusing on the future and manifest what you want, you know, and remembering your dreams, like all these things that I'm talking about. I want that to be my legacy.
Ooh, man. So I want to say that you have someone behind you that has left a legacy that has inspired all of us. You know, Kobe Bryant has done that, man. And that's one of the things that, you know, what we'll say about his legacy, about the imprint that he left on us and the imprint that he left on our hearts. Man, so thank you for sharing that, man. So you're sitting in the room of inspiration of how you want to leave your legacy, man, with those books behind you, and just, you know, keep being those words that are on those pages and living that out, and get rid of the word trying.
Yeah.
Like I tell people all the time, you know, even when somebody says like, yeah, I'm trying to do it, and it's just a casual conversation. And, I stop and be like, well, yeah, you're not trying, and they're like, what? You know, and I intentionally disrupt them because I want them to hear what they're saying. You know, because eventually you're gonna go back and you're like, I'm not trying. I am
right,
man. I am doing, you know, because we don't want to wait until our 40s and 50s and 60s and say, oh man, we was trying. I'm still trying. You know, at some point in time, you know, we have to say, this is what I do. You know, this is who I am. Like I hear Stan said, you know, he's just like, hey, I'm Stan the man. And it just sounds really good because he's telling you who he is and what he does. And so, you know, that's just something for us to all to remember and remind us, you know, in our circle. Like change those words, like let people know and let those kids know, you know, like let your younger version of yourself know, like you're not trying, stop trying.
Right.
You know, because then they're like, well, I didn't know I was trying. Well, do it. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I'm doing it. You know,
hey,
then they really start saying it.
Prince, I really appreciate that, and you're absolutely 100% right. One thing that we were talking about the tools and how to stay inspired. You know, one of the tools that I use is affirmations. I don't know if you guys listen to affirmations, but I think those, going back to that question that you asked me, Stan, of what I would tell my younger self, I would tell my younger self to start listening to positive affirmations on the daily. Oof. Right? Like there's one, Prince, and you're right about the whole word of try. Like there's one I listen to almost every day called I Am. And it's I am powerful, I am great, I am successful, I am, and just for an hour. You know, and I'll listen to it when I drive or when I do other things. But affirmations is rewiring the subconscious, you know, and that is what I would tell my younger self. And what I am going to pass that forward and pay that forward to the next generation.
Absolutely, man. Aaron, thank you so very much. This episode did not disappoint.
Thank you.
Anytime. Look forward to having you back sometime with us as well. And how can folks learn more about you, or how can they find you on social media to connect and learn more about what you do and who you are?
Yeah. Hey, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate this opportunity. And that was a fun talk. We should definitely do a part 2 sometime. Yeah, you guys can find me on Instagram, Wexla, AWEXLA. And then my podcast, if you guys can follow that, I'm just kind of starting it up, but it's going really well, at Within the Game Podcast.
Amazing. Yo, again, Aaron Wexler, thank you so very much for joining us today, being so transparent and also shining so much light for everyone as well, and obviously sharing part of your story. Who knows? Part 2 may be in the mix. For those of you all watching, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Prince Daniels Jr. YouTube page again, okay? Make sure you subscribe to the Prince Daniels Jr. YouTube page, and you can join us every week at Tuesday, Game Beyond Facebook page live, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, join us on Facebook Live every Tuesday. Game Beyond the Games Facebook page every Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you all so very much for being here. Until next time, peace.
Peace, everybody.